Hi, welcome to Car Shenanigans. In this episode, I'm going to be looking at some potential upgrades to do to my twin turbo Audi powered Porsche Boxster. I'm at a bit of a crossroads with my Boxster in terms of what to do now I've got a turbo blown. It was on the RS4 turbos, just Chinese copies. It made 400 horsepower, and the car was really good. I'm not disappointed with it. Disappointed with the power thing because it should have made more, but I wasn't disappointed with the way it drives. But since the engine's coming out, and I need to replace the turbos, I can't leave anything alone, and I tend to always want to upgrade. Now, before I built this 987, I had a 986. It was in 2016, and I built that with a big single turbo, and the car caught fire before it was ever done. And basically, I couldn't afford to rebuild it, so when I built another Boxster, I just went with a standard engine, so I kept it twin turbo. And I've slowly been sort of developing it since into this 987 I got now. But I still got all the parts that were sort of saved from the fire. And so I'm contemplating I could sort of revive the single turbo setup, or I've done a lot of development on the car as it is. And I could just improve on that with some bigger twin turbos. So this is my 6-speed gearbox. This is from a 987 3.2. Now it looks a bit scabby. It's got ash over it. This is the one that was from the fire. It's got a Quaife differential fitted. Now it's stronger than the 5-speed apparently, although I don't know how much of this is internet hearsay and how much is fact. I do know somebody's got an Audi 2.7 twin turbo like me in a rallycross Porsche Boxster, and he's broken 2 5-speed gearboxes. He says that's done on the transitions from dirt to tarmac, which tends to give him a bit of a jolt. Now he's on KO3 turbo, so he's under 400 horsepower. So I don't know if hard use with another 100 or so horsepower you're likely to kill a 5-speed. So I'm in two minds if I fit this or not. If I fit this, I've got to change the gear cables and the linkage, and also I need to change the drive shafts. I bought the bits earlier this week on eBay, so if I want to change I can. So it looks a bit scary, it needs cleaning up. Things like this got charred in the fire, but it's all fine. The fire didn't really go back that far, so it's good. So that's the gearbox situation. If I did go for this gearbox, I could revive my old turbo kit, which is over here. This is the turbo that bolted onto the back of it. It's a Hulsat hybrid. It's a HX35 with a HX40 compressor side. Can't remember the exact specs, but I think it's rated for about 600 horsepower. I liked it on the old engine. It spooled quite well, and it was good. The only issue is in the fire it picked up some bits of K&N and chipped a couple of the compressor fins. Now I'm really annoyed about that because this turbo, I spent £380 getting it rebuilt, and it literally lasted about 20 miles before the fire happened. So if I did use it, I'd have to get the compressor wheel swapped. Now everything looks really scabby and corroded. Now the reason for this is the stuff they used to try and put the fire out, and the chemicals. It just seems to have eaten into everything. We've got the Forge external wastegate that I bought just before the fire happened. I'm really glad that didn't get burnt, because I think I paid about 400 quid for that, and I think now currently the price is about 600 quid for them, so I'm glad that escaped. This is the exhaust that I was using. It's a 3.5 inch system, and I wasn't really that happy with it. It was very loud. The silencer basically does nothing, and I wasn't over the moon with how I ended up with a tip. So basically had the larger oval one and then the smaller external wastegate screamer pipe. They looked alright, but I'd rather they were matching. That there is a one-way valve, and there's a tube that fits into the exhaust, and it draws a vacuum, and that was connected up to my crankcase breather, and so you draw all the crankcase gases straight out into the exhaust, which was better than venting to the atmosphere, especially in my car, because the engine bay is sort of sealed off and doesn't get much airflow through it. Yeah, so that's the exhaust I'm currently using. These are Ferrari 458 rear silencers, and they got the valves built in, so when you got your valves closed, they're going through a tiny little pipe down there, which is like an inch and a bit, and so this silent basically, it sounds like a standard car, and I'm really pleased about that, because you don't always want your car to be sounding horrifically loud, especially late at night. So I'm leaning towards keeping these standard silencers and ditching this. On the last car I had the charge cooler fitted in the boot. Now it worked really well in there. It's a massive core, very heavy, 3.5 inch inlet and outlet, but what I liked about it is it was away from the engine bay heat, and you could actually feel that one side of it was cold and one side of it was warmer, where it was doing its job and chilling the air coming out of the turbo. The downside was it used up boot space, and one thing I'm really pleased about on my current 987 is that I haven't compromised the car in terms of practicality at all. There's no luggage space used up. The charge coolers sit in the engine bay on the side of the engine. It makes it more difficult to work on it, but they're nicely packaged. So these are the ones I'm currently using. They're from a Mercedes S600 V12 twin turbo, and they do the job really well. I've been logging the temperatures and they're doing exactly as they should. So I'm not really wanting to change those. Now, since I'm thinking I'm going to go for more power, I've got these rods. They're just max speeding rods, so they're Chinese specials. They're out of the last engine. They did the business, so I'm thinking I'll be putting those in this engine whilst it's apart. Now, thinking I might go twin turbo, I bought these. Now, these are Borg Warner turbos, genuine ones. They're just been rebuilt by Bidland's Turbos. They're off an Audi RS6, so they're still KO4 frame turbos, but they're larger. Now, I don't really know, but according to the internet, I think these are sort of good for 550-ish on the Audi 2.7T engine. Some people say more, but my engine doesn't ever seem to make the power that everybody on the internet says it should. So if I fit these, they're a lot of effort on a 2.7T usually, because you haven't got much space around the turbos. So you got your chassis rails tight up against them, and so this, well, both compressor housings need modifying, but this bit usually gets chopped off and a different piece welded there from the original turbos. And obviously you've got your actuator jutting out at the side, and you've got no space for that, so they need a bit of modifying. Now I'm thinking in my application I might get away with not having to do so many modifications, so I've got quite a bit of space around the side of the engine. So I'm going to have a look at these and decide whether they're a goer or not. If they're too much hassle, I might not bother. But I do think it'll be the neatest solution for the car. I'll need to refabricate the downpipes because they got bigger flanges on these, and also the way I had the downpipes before, I wasn't particularly happy. I used the standard ones and they dropped down, and then they had to come back up to meet the exhaust there because it's quite high. And then I had to sort of bodge the transmission mount brackets to go underneath, or to go over the exhaust. So the exhaust was dipping down, the mounts were going over, and I'd rather just be able to go straight across the top and have the mounts underneath like standard. So I'll be remaking all of that. I've picked up a set of these manifolds, just cheap eBay ones. They look nicer than they probably are. I'm going to have a good look inside to see how they are with my bore scope. But I'll probably run those with these turbos if I do go this route. So I got a lot to think about, and I'll need to see which is the best way to go. I don't really want to compromise the car, and I feel like the single turbo setup would compromise it a little bit in terms of where I'm putting the charge cooler and the noise. And one of the other things was, because the turbo was mounted low, I had an oil return pump that had brass gears in it to pump the oil back into the sump, and that was really loud. It was basically as loud as the exhaust, and I wasn't happy with that, to be honest with you. So knowing what I know, I'm probably gonna go for these. I think it'll be the neatest way around it. Although the single turbo stuff did look cool hanging underneath the car, I was quite proud of that. Excuse all the weeds and the grass. I'm too busy playing with cars to look after the garden, and the missus is not happy with me. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you like what you see, and in the next video I'll be removing the engine and then deciding which way I'm going with all these various bits and pieces I've got. Bye.